Hey, Gator Nation. Welcome back to the Respect Our Decision podcast. It is January 4th, and this is your boy Hirsch, and with me is Mike.
What's going on?
And our man Wes couldn't be with us tonight. He's got some personal issues he had to take care of with his family. He'll be back with us next week. But as always, guys, we appreciate you for tuning in, and we hope you had a happy new year. Make sure you go out, check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. And as always, guys, make sure you check us out on YouTube, Respect Our Decision. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Drop the like on the video. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button so you get a notification anytime we drop new content. And leave us a comment if you don't mind. We like reading your comments, seeing what y'all are thinking about us out there. We appreciate it. And as always, guys, if you'd like to support us as creators, check out our Patreon, Respect Our Decision. We appreciate y'all out there for being part of the Patreon family, and we use every dollar we make to add back to this show and try to make better for you. And as always, guys, we want to give a big shout out to our key sponsor, All-Star Roofing in Georgia. All-Star Roofing are expert contractors and offer a wide range of roofing services, including roof repair, gutter repair, and installation, as well as storm damage repair. So if any of y'all were involved in the storm in Atlanta last night and you need some roof repair, go to allstarsroofs.com, use code RESPECT100, and save yourself $500. That being said, guys, we're going to jump right into it, man. Had a busy week out there with all the All-Star game practices going on and the UA game last night. So we're going to start with a little recruiting news. As we know right now, the boys are out there practicing in San Antonio for the Army game. And one of our last key targets of the season is out there, Caden Jones, offensive tackle, 6'8", 325-pound mass of humanity, ranked 493rd nationally, 36th offensive tackle in the country. He'll be announcing at the All-Star game this weekend. It's down to us and Texas A&M. He's been a long-time Gator lean, crystal balled by Steve Wiltfong to the Gators and a few others. Rumor is that after his visit at Texas A&M, it's a little tighter than once assumed, but I think the good guy should still be in good position for this one, Mike. What you think?
Yeah, I don't really see a reason why not, especially with us not getting Sampson. Definitely helps us out with the depth chart, and he's from Louisiana, so we have the ties there and develop that relationship with the coaching staff. So with that all being said, I definitely see the good guys getting Caden Jones. I wouldn't want to call him a true project, but he needs some seasoning, so at least a couple years away.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that these offensive line coaches like to take. Big guy, long wingspan, and they like to work with him and get him into shape and in their system. So we've seen it with this offensive line coaching group. They've obviously developed quite a few prospects at Louisiana and got them ready for the draft. Obviously, Osiris Torrance speaks for himself, although he was a guard. But one of those kind of guys you bring in, you coach him up, and hopefully in a year or two, he's ready to take some reps.
And another thing about him, he's not something they just like playing F or whatever. He's been on the radar for months, so he just you could say staff pretty much told him to wait and hold off on the commit for a little bit. But now, if we can get him on board, I'll be more than happy to have him.
Yeah, the old slow play a little bit. You see it all the time. You have bigger prospects on your board. You keep some in your back pocket in case things go sideways, like they did with Sampson and Simmons. And when that happens, you have a fallback, and that's what they did with this young man. Hopefully he commits to the good guys this weekend, and we add one more to this class. Moving on, somebody that absolutely is not going to be part of this class, despite whatever you want to, you may want to think or hope. I know some are still holding out hope. Cormani McLean, if you watched the game last night, you would have seen the definitely awkward interview with Cormani on the sidelines, where he announced he will be officially signing on the 15th and ended it with saying, well, yeah, I mean, of course it's Miami. I don't think it's Miami, Mike. What you think?
Yeah, he's not going to Miami. I don't think he ever wanted to go to Miami. I think it was the money grab, just pay up front. But hey, I mean, to each his own. He'll be at Colorado.
I'll give it to them to give him this. Him and his mama are good businessmen and women.
Who knows how to work the system? I
mean, they fleeced some money out of Miami and us. Let's not play like we're just laughing, in this situation. We gave him some money down and he ran with it.
Yeah.
So the man,
but to be honest, he's an extremely talented individual, but he's kind of showing his true colors, and a player like that pulls these kind of antics over and over again. 9 times out of 10, they prove to be a bust, no matter how talented they truly are, because they don't get out of their own way.
For those of you that didn't see the clip of Cormani getting smoked over the top by Utah commit Mikey Matthews down at the practices in Orlando, Jaden Rashada threw that ball, by the way. Cormani got smoked by a 3-star and then came up with a shoulder injury on non-contact drills and sat out some practices.
Yeah, once again, it just I don't like the more and more I found out about him after the when we committed to Miami, that was just full on Rick's mode.
Yeah, and it's, you call it sour grapes, call it whatever you want, but I'm okay with it. And if the kid ends up being a star, then so be it. That he made it, then he did that on his own. No doubt about it. But he's going to have to overcome himself, I think, for that to happen. And more often than not, that doesn't happen. Moving on real quick before we jump into some Under Armour week notes. And shame that Wes isn't here for this. Talk 2024 recruit Stacey Gage, running back out of Tampa this week, dropped his top 8, and the Gators are in it, as you would expect, along with Alabama, Colorado, Miami, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Penn State, and USC. Gage comes in as the 140th overall prospect in the composite, 12th running back overall. Really good prospect. I believe he's probably second on our board below Jarrett Gibson, and has a real possibility to end up as the lead back in this class with Chauncey Bowens. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
No, I mean, he's a talented guy. He's from my favorite area in the country, the Tampa area. And, that would complete our running back class for this cycle. So, I'm all for it. If, just get him in, get him in there, get the class done early, let him start recruiting itself.
Yeah. For those who haven't seen, Gage he's an alpha. That kid is a leader. He is very vocal with his team. He is what you look for in a prospect from the mental and from the standpoint of being a leader and a guy that's just going to try to hype others up around him and bring out the best in everyone around him. That's one of the best qualities about him. Prototypical size for running back, 5'11", 200 pounds, just a beast. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I believe Gibson out of IMG is probably the higher rated guy on the coach's board, as he should be, number 1 back in the country. But we'll see what happens. I mean, if Gibson was once committed to us and decommitted, then moved from Clayton County, Georgia, down to IMG, used to live in Gainesville. So we got a lot of ties there, but it's nice to have a fallback of that kind of nature if things don't work out.
That also is going to come down to how much does he want, if he wants it.
Exactly.
Because as we can see with ETN, it's you don't need a Baxter type of level back, $750,000 back in order to succeed in this system.
Absolutely not. You need a guy that's willing to be able to take 10 to 14, 15 carries a game, Doesn't need to be the running back that wants 25 carries a game. I like the mentality of that. I mean, obviously, you want a guy that wants to be the lead dog and wants that, but keep them fresh, man. Keep them fresh in this day and age.
But also that zone scheme.
Absolutely.
Type it back. So.
Yep. All right, and let's jump into some Under Armour notes. It was a busy week. The Gators, as we mentioned last week, had 10 prospects down in Orlando. And we're not going to get into every single one of them, but we're gonna hit on some of the high points. And of course, if you're going to talk about the Gator commits that were there, you have to start off with the alpha man, Jaden Rashada, was down there. The Gators quarterback out of Pittsburgh, California, put on quite a show during the practice portion of the week down there. Was a little limited in the game, but during the practice, Jaden Rashada really showed why he is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He was right there with Arnold, throw for throw, every practice. Arnold, of course, committed to Oklahoma. Really showing it off. Very similar arm talent. Easily amongst one of the biggest, strongest arms in the country. Very smooth with his mechanics. Very snap release. Very, just effortless. Mike, what you think about Rashada?
No, I like how he came in and kind of did his thing. Obviously, he still has to work on a couple of things like throwing outside the pocket, but it's in anticipation. But that's common especially with new receivers at these types of games. But one thing, once again, was the arm talent. He's undeniable, and the accuracy showed like that deep ball over Cormani. So with that being said, I definitely foresee a jump in the rankings. And I'm excited to see, that we definitely have, a talent coming to us in Gainesville. Gets some, and also that he recently said he's looking to put on like 25 pounds of muscle on that frame. And hey,
came in at 185 pounds.
Yeah, and you get him up to like 205, 210. I didn't see how broad his shoulders were, but at the same time, because I know that was a problem with Emory. That's why you couldn't really bulk him up too much. But like a player, if your shoulders are wider, like AR, you can put on more weight. But even at 205, 210, he's got plenty of. You can probably get him up to like 220, 225 by the time he leaves Florida easily. So I definitely think it's an obtainable goal.
Yeah, and let's keep it straight, guys. The kid looked very good. Obviously, in practices, you're throwing on air a lot of the time. I mean, you have some coverages. You're not facing a blitz most of the time in these practice settings. He has all the raw coachable tools you want out of your quarterback coming from the high school ranks. But this is not a kid that's going to be a day one starter when he steps on campus. So I know I saw a lot of people when the videos were coming out from down there. Shout out to all the guys that were sending the videos. Alderman was sending out some videos. Andrew Spivey was sending out some videos, and some other guys that own 3 and Rivals and 247. And great throws. And I saw a lot of people immediately going, yep, there's our day one starter right there, Jaden Rashada. I can see it. Guys, he's throwing on air. He's throwing with no blitz. That's not what you're going to see in the SEC day one as a freshman.
And unfortunately, at the same time, those are the same folks that are the ones that press probably all freshmen. Then at the same time, they're pissed we don't make a bowl game. So you can't have it both ways. You can't talk out. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. So
there's a reason the staff wanted a 1-year stopgap.
Yep.
It's just that is why you want a 1-year stopgap. You bring in Mertz, whether you like it or not, guys. I understand there's a lot of frustration in that take, but you get Rashada in there, maybe in a scripted series here, there, and hopefully we have some blowouts and he can play some fourth quarters, which would be ideal. That's what you want to see. But I wouldn't expect him to take a red shirt next year because they're going to want to get him some reps. But at the same point, if that kid comes in and starts day one, it's going to be a bad season. And that's just what it is. So
yeah, because he made a big jump from his junior season to his senior season.
which
So
is what you want to see. Completion percentage went up. All the measurables and metrics you want to see went up.
but he's still raw.
Yeah, he's very raw. So you get him in here, you work with him, you get him comfortable with the offense, and like I said, series here, series there, fourth quarter blowout, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then year 2, it's his team. That's how it should work. And then you have Lagway behind him doing the same thing. So Billy's got a plan, man. And I mean, everybody doesn't want to see it that way, and I understand it. You want immediate results. You want to see, especially in a year where you see TCU doing what they just did. I get it. But those are two different sides of the coin, and we'll deep dive that at a different time. Another prospect that we want to jump to next, and probably very surprising to the members of this show, Will Norman was an absolute beast down in Orlando this week. I mean, and if you just look at him, he's an absolute man-child. You know, I hadn't seen him. He's tatted up from wrist to the top of his neck. I mean, he looks like he's ready to just get to work, and he got to work this week. So pleasant surprise there, wouldn't you say, Mike?
Yeah, I'm gladly eating crow. You know, he was the one D tackle. I'm like, if he had to go, okay, see ya. Just because I didn't like how he handled his commitment. And normally, when you have any hint of a diva type of attitude at that position, defensive tackle, you're not going to pan out. But no, he's luckily was on the. He just killed it. The bottom line, one word described, was dominant. If it was team drills, if it was one-on-ones, he was an animal all over the place. He was tenacious, and I definitely think he can work his way on the field. We're talking even potentially day one. Given the
guy.
Yeah, no, given the lack of proven depth at the 3 tech. I'm definitely excited to see what he can do moving forward.
You talked about him, the rumors of the diva attitude and things like that. Well, let me tell you what really impresses me deep diving into his performance this week. This is a kid that transferred back up north, obviously, and only got to play 5 games this year. But it's very evident in how he looks physically and how he performed this week. He didn't waste that downtime. He didn't take that time that I'm not playing this week, so I'm just going to sit home, watch TV, eat a bag of chips, do whatever. He was working on his craft. So that shows he's got the mindset that he needs, that he's serious about playing ball next year.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, and that's something an aspect I didn't even think about, because if you want to take another step back, he's in Jersey his sophomore year. He goes down to IMG to get noticed. Obviously it's not bright lights on Camden, New Jersey. Goes IMG, gets noticed, does his thing. Senior season, goes back home. At that point, you're not at a facility that rivals some NFL's facilities. So
where you're going to be put on a program day in, day out.
Absolutely. So he could have, once you said, let alone not playing every week, he could have definitely just
got into mama's home cooking.
And he's a professional. He treated it like it's a business trip. So that's, once again, that shows the maturity level and why he potentially could play himself into a day one rotation.
Absolutely. A lot of things you like to see there. You don't always see some of that stuff in the clips.
Glad to be wrong.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people eating crow on that one. We're talking to you, Steven Rodriguez. All right. Well, let's jump on to arguably one of the best performers the Gators had in Orlando, Jakeem Jackson. And boy, you talk about an evaluation. Me and you talked about it before the show, and A lot of people are asking right now because we missed on 5-star Cormani. We missed on Ricks. The word out there is Corey Raymond washed. Well, sir, Jakeem Jackson was arguably the best cornerback in Orlando this weekend. Probably looks for the biggest rise in rankings out of any Gator commit that we have right now. Could easily possibly be a top 50 prospect before it's all said and done. I mean, what can you say? It was said earlier it's been many weeks ago. Our buddy Connor saw him play against Cormani. And the words Connor used at that time was, Jakeem Jackson is him. And everything that we heard from then on was that Jakeem was the man, that Jakeem was vastly underrated and played lockdown on whoever he covered. And everything we saw and heard this weekend just backed every bit of that up. So I don't think Corey Raymond's quite washed yet, huh, Mike?
No, he's a chance to jump literally 200 spots. If it's not going to be top 50, it'll be top 75. He started, I think when we got him, he was right around 247. So, I think he's definitely going to jump DeJean in the rankings. And he, out of that Osceola 3, I definitely think he's going to jump Walker. And so, a lot of people thought was just a throw-in initially, could be the jewel of that trio. So
yeah,
that's
if y'all don't
of that Osceola trio. So that's definitely saying something. And we kept saying throughout that this was cool. This was Raymond's baby. Like this, this was his pet project, and he just kept rising and rising and rising. So we got to give hats off to the staff on that eval, and also hanging on to him as well.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next guy, I mean, while we're sitting here talking about Raymond's evaluations, Sharif Denson and DeJean Johnson showed out as well down there. I mean, so they got high praise too. They were often in the others that did well comment. You'd see on 247 when they do their daily practice wrap ups. Others that shine the next five or next few out, because they usually do like a top 10 of the day or something like that. And Denson especially was there quite a few times, prospect out of Jacksonville. So I know it hurts not getting some of those 5-star guys, and we can obviously say that we need 5-star prospects in this class. But Corey Raymond can still evaluate with any DB coach in this country. So don't get it twisted.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, if Jakeem Jackson was 1A or 1B, then the guy right there with him arguably would be Kelby Collins on the week. If you didn't watch the game, Kelby Collins was named the MVP of team speed in Orlando. Had multiple sacks in the game. Just an animal. And let's just not look past this. Mike said it many times. Nicholas Saban got stuffed in a locker for this kid.
Again. And I'm already starting scouting. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, with Hugh Freeze in the state, but I'm already scouting that state of Alabama and who I want next.
Kelby's going to play next year. I almost see no way you can keep that kid off the field. He looks physically the part. He'll probably put on a little bit more weight more muscle weight when he gets to campus. I mean, he's just that kind of prospect. I know he was ranked somewhere around 36 on the 247 rankings, not the composite, but their rankings. I have a feeling you're going to see Kelby Collins shoot up a lot of rankings in the next few weeks as they come out.
Yeah, in worst case, he's a gamer, as it's as evident there. But no, he definitely just did his thing. And if I recall correctly, he obliterated his All-Star game in Alabama as well. So
he did. Yeah, absolutely.
No, and he's a leader, and I described him previously in another show. He's a football player. Like that's how I would
proud
describe.
to be a Gator.
Yeah, no,
I'm proud to be a Gator.
Leader of the class. So this is once again we're going over these players, and and as you alluded to, Hirsch, you're not having the Ricks or Sampsons, which freaking sucks. But and what goes back to that silver lining I was talking to, but that class average, and at the worst case scenario, you're looking at a freaking beautiful foundation of what can be. And and this, look at who we're talking about. We Stacey Gage, potentially Lagway already in the fold. So the future is bright.
Absolutely. This staff evaluates fantastically. It's just becoming more and more evident by what you see as people see these kids that we've taken in person. Before it's very hit or miss, because some kids might not camp, or some guys might not be able to get to some high school games where these kids play. Maybe it's just out of the way. It's just not easy to get to watch some of these kids play. But the more people see them in these kind of surroundings, they're like, oh my God, this kid is insanely developed. Looks great. He's got the tools that you're looking for, but et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the staff is on their game with these evaluations. You've seen very few guys that be like, well, he's not everything he was hyped up to be. I can't name one person that's been said that about as far as the Gator commits go. One more guy we want to talk about before we move on, Roderick Kearney. He was on the other team. I know it's Team Speed, and I can't remember. Team Phantom, I believe it is. He was in Team Phantom. Arguably one of the best run-blocking interior offensive linemen at the Under Armour setting this week, which is absolutely what you want to hear, given Billy Napier's scheme. Mike, is this a kid that might be playing next year?
Depending what occurs in the transfer portal, it's definitely a possibility. I hate to rely on interior offensive lineman. I know he needs to work on his pass pro. Perfect world. We pull an interior offensive lineman in. We move Richie Leonard. In my dream world, better yet, we move Richie Leonard to center. Downtown County alum. We go to Roger Kearney proves to be worthy. We make like a hypothetical, like the Baylor transfer over at guard, and we get another transfer over at tackle. And that point, you have a little bit more depth there. So, and your interior is just good to go. But again, that's a perfect world. If he can be a legitimate a reliable backup, I'll take it.
Yeah, and get some reps. Be ready. If worst case scenario, be ready to go year 2. That's what you want to see, man. You want to see it. Get coached once again by the same coaches that coached up Osiris. See what he's got. Guys, before we move on, talk about some portal activity, we want to also mention Trey Webb and Cameron James will be playing in the Army All-American game this weekend. If y'all want to check that out, please make sure you do that. Support our kids down there. And as we already mentioned, Caden Jones will be playing in that and making his announcement in that game. Be very interested to see how Trey Webb does in that. Obviously, he's a kid that has slipped in the rankings for unknown reasons, other than he was injured last year. Kid put on a phenomenal season, over 1,000 yards rushing, over 20 touchdowns, and has continued to fall in the rankings, one of life's biggest mysteries. And Cameron James, who on 3 has ranked in the top 40 prospects, but he's probably top 250 on every other site. So hopefully Cameron puts on a big show out there and shows why he was wanted by Kirby Smart in the University of Georgia. So, guys, with that being said, we're going to jump into a little portal talk. Portal Mania, man. Brought to you by Prize Picks, our sponsor, Prize Picks. Of course, we're partnering with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is your daily fantasy made easy. pull together 2 to 5 players, take the over or the under on their stat line, pile up the money, man. It's as easy as that. Make sure you go out there, sign up for Prize Picks, and if you do, use code RESPECT100, and Prize Picks will match your first donation up to $100, man. Go make some money last week of the NFL season. All right, Mike. We're going to jump into it, baby. It's been a good week in the portal, and Mike is a happy man. We have a nose tackle. Cameron Jackson from Memphis. Actually, home state in Louisiana. But played at the University of Memphis. Has committed to the Florida Gators. And you talk about a nose tackle. 6'6", 340 pounds. Number 18 prospect on the On3 transfer portal rankings. And a redshirt sophomore with 2 years remaining. Mike, how are you feeling today?
I didn't think this day would come.
We did it.
Yeah, I mean, in the words of Rocky, Adrian, we did it. It's
Chaos was saying that.
Who?
He got a nose. I mean, I don't know. Can you?
I mean,
does one nose not make a chaos?
Man's name's Spencer. You lose John Walker to UCF, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to stay in a good mood. No, this is absolutely this is tremendous. What this is going to do to our D line. It allows others such as McClellan to go to their natural positions. Just to some of his stats here. 41 tackles last year. 2.5 for loss and a sack. 76.4 grade against the run, 577 snaps with 20 pressures. So you can tell, his stamina's up there as well. So between him with Watson and also potentially, depending on the package, working alongside Watson in like a jumbo package as well. So, it's not the he also has 2 years of eligibility.
I said that.
Oh, you did? My apologies. But no, there's also a late push by another team down south that I'm not gonna lie, made my heart skip a beat. But that goes to, once again, they don't beat us for every kid.
Say it louder. Say it louder. Because the day of his commitment, word on the street was he was going to Miami. Miami came in, dropped the bag, it was done. Florida and Florida's boosters said, no, not again. We ain't having it. So kudos to all involved in that situation. We've said it. And now this isn't exactly the situation we're talking about needing to let our nuts hang and quit. But it's a start. And it's for probably the biggest need we had, arguably, right?
I'd say, honestly, I would say, I would say it was the biggest, arguably.
Biggest is a good choice of words.
Pardon?
Biggest is a good choice of words.
Yeah, no, it's what it just does is it gives you flexibility because you can't go once again and have McClellan out of position being your backup nose, and because we're just too unproven across the defensive line as it is, and which we'll talk about in a little bit. But no, it's just once again not no puns intended, but it's massive. It's gonna allow Watson to be better because it gives him some more break during the game. So I think him and Jackson are just going to be, games like Kentucky, LSU. They're just going to run the ball a lot. Really, we have some unproven, honestly unproven, but some, like Shamar James help us out with them.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake about it, man. I mean, I can't say it enough. This is a huge get. All puns aside, this is an absolutely big time get for our team next year and hopefully the year after. I mean, hopefully the kid is here 2 years. He has 2 years of eligibility. Hopefully we keep him here for 2 years because we're hoping 2024 is a much better season as a whole. So you mentioned it. It gives us legitimate depth across the defensive line. This is probably a much better legitimate defensive line than we had last year. Correct?
Hands down. I mean, I think Gervin Dexter played 195 snaps the first game. So it's just to go over, some of the, the depth chart here. Potentially, what are you looking at? And correct me if I'm wrong at any point. You want to chime in, Hirsch? You got strong side defensive end. You got Princely, 3 tech starting. Going to be McClellan, and then a nose tackle. I would just say put him at Cameron Jackson. Edge going to be Antoine Powell. But keep in mind I am not including any true freshmen here. Backup strong side defensive end Boone. / Sap, backup defensive tackle, going to be, I'll pay 1A, 1B, 1C. Going to be Caleb Banks, Sap, if they want to try him there again, and also Jamari Lyons, nose tackle Watson, and edge just by default going to be Jack Pyburn. So, with the exception of Pyburn in some unproven pieces at 3 tech, but keep in mind, Norman could easily work his way in there. I'm extremely happy with, our defensive line.
Yeah. Look, you said freshmen not included, and we already have spoken at depth that we have a massive defensive line class coming in. You've got Collins. You've got TJ Cerciate for the edge that we haven't even spoken about. Cameron James, Norman. I mean, this is a lot of names to add to this. So, and I wouldn't be surprised maybe if they went out there and tried to find a depth piece on that Jack linebacker as well. But I also don't know what you've seen out of Pyburn in practices and whatnot to encourage if he's ready for the position.
He's a program guy to me. Like, he's that type, maybe like a Brian Cox Jr., who, like Brian Cox Jr. had a very solid final season with us and played in NFL for a couple of years.
Got himself an NFL contract because of it.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a hellion on special teams. He's a little folk hero. So if you get a nice depth piece back, and who's to say maybe a Princely can't slide there every now and then as a worst case scenario, but you have to get a veteran there, like we pulled in for a linebacker.
Well, like you said, now there's a lot of options in this defensive line now that there was not before.
Like Sap.
That 3 technique is a, you've, like you said, we got McClellan, we brought in Banks. Sap played there last year, which most people thought he was out of position in that spot. Where does he go? Does he push Princely for a starting spot? I mean, you don't know. I mean, it's just I wouldn't say that Princely's got it locked down based on how he performed last year. I just think he was the best guy that they had last year.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to watch, and it could be one of those things, and we always hate talking about this, but there might actually, after spring practice, be some attrition there. One of these guys, Boone or Sap, might decide, look, I'm not where I want to be on this depth chart, and head on out. And that's the nature of the beast that we're in right now. So it'll be something to watch in spring practice for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping Sap's family ties will keep him in town. So.
Absolutely. Star man. And then some. But that wasn't the only transfer commitment we got this week, man. I mean, we shored up the linebacking room as well. Of course, Ohio State lost that heartbreaker to Georgia at midnight.
I was actually FaceTiming. I called my dad. I FaceTimed him. I was like, Dad, put on it. You watching the game? He goes, yeah. I literally just FaceTimed him. I saw the kick. I hung up.
Can't hang up on the old man.
I was at a club somewhere.
But just a couple days ago after Ohio State's loss, he was already in the portal, but was playing his last game at Ohio State. Respect for that. Redshirt senior Trejada Mitchell, linebacker, committed to Florida, and he will be an early enrollee.
Which is big, by the way.
What's that?
Which is big, by the way.
Absolutely.
That's
Gets
huge.
in, learns the
Communication.
Worst case scenario, kid's a great depth piece. I mean, this is a guy that was a top 50 prospect coming out of high school. He's had some injuries, and whatnot that have taken him down a bit. But when in the game, he's been fairly productive. So this will be a guy that comes in and pushes Derek Wingo like, hey, this position isn't yours yet, son. You're going to have to keep working. And that's probably a good thing.
Absolutely. When you have a guy, coming from experience, you have a guy, like, listen, I can't just BS at practice. Like, it's going to make you better. Iron sharpens iron.
And it very well, Wingos could have the mindset, well, I served my time. I played behind Ventrell, and now the time is mine. Well, guess what? No, you're going to have to work. And I applaud the staff for doing that, because that shows that they're not just comfortable with what's here at certain positions. They're going to push these guys.
Yeah, I see Mitchell as a great value. Ventrell.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, he can be a leader, a guy that's been on not championship teams, obviously, but, he's been on playoff teams. He's been on a winning team for damn sure. I think it's a good presence to have in your locker room.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see nothing negative about this take whatsoever. I think it's a good take. Once again, we've used this term already, stopgap player. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, we lost the second most players in the country, I want to say.
Yes, behind A&M.
That's high. So, we literally have to get these players. So, not every player is going to start, and some players are okay with coming in as a depth piece as well. Just, once again, played a big time program, as instead of going to maybe like to do it like Lingard did. So we need to replace these players. So you're like, okay, well, he's not even going to play. What's the point? Well, what if Wingo gets hurt? What if he doesn't work out? Like, you need somebody.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, there's no downside about this tape right now. So, speaking of players of ours, we're talking about we lost second most players. One of the guys we lost and recently, and we talked about him last week on the show, that maybe it was not a done deal, but now it is a done deal. Offensive tackle Michael Tarquin announced earlier this week he was officially transferring to USC. I mean, that just shows that Michael Tarquin wasn't a bad player whatsoever. He went to a legitimate team, a team that's probably going to be obviously top 10 next year with the returning Heisman Trophy. Will probably be top 5, I would probably guess, in that conference next year. It turns out to be a bigger loss now than even we probably thought. So what now, Mike? What do we do now at offensive tackle?
Cry a little inside. I thought I had my tackles for next season, but guess not.
Your favorite?
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Team Barber.
My boy's gonna get a brick. But no, so it's got to pivot, pick up a transfer like we were talking about before. John Campbell is actually scheduled to come in per Blake Alderman of 24/7. He's coming in this weekend, the 5th and 6th. At Miami, he went on to play in 34 games with 18 starts, 16 at left tackle, 1 at right tackle, 1 at left guard. And this past season, Hurricanes started 12 games. and a bounce back effort after missing the 2021 season with the knee injury. So a little worrisome that he's already had an injury, but that, a knee injury and not anywhere in the trenches, it's normal.
Bound to happen. That's why you always see them with 2 knee braces on.
Absolutely, even if they never had a knee injury, absolutely. So, if talking to some Miami Hurricane friends, he's lacking in the run, solid in the pass pro, lacking in the run game. However, the one I'm trying to be optimistic that the zone scheme will be more beneficial to him.
That was kind of what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough tape. So once again, I especially given how much we're going to run the ball next season. I'm pretty sure Billy has faith in him that he can get that squared away.
Yeah,
so he's a veteran presence out there.
Campbell dropped the top 4 right after this visit was announced, and we obviously were in the top 4. Tennessee was in there, FSU was in there. I cannot off the top of my head remember the 4th team, but they were also a pretty good team. I mean, it was 4 solid teams. So if he's being legit with what he's saying, he's not just blowing smoke for attention. I mean, that's a solid group of teams after the kid. So that tells you that he's not, obviously there's an injury concern. I've heard some of the things you heard, that he's not that great. Could be a scheme. I mean, not a whole lot is great down there. So.
Yeah. And one thing down there, they don't develop O-linemen really that well. I mean, they may be Zion, but overall, they're not the best at developing offensive linemen. So, bringing them in, like I said, this is a guy they identified. So, and if they after the visit, if they truly want him, don't let him leave. That's another thing.
Yeah, because and that was what I was going to say. I mean, are we in a concerned spot now with our offensive tackles?
I mean, there's not a bunch of them out there.
No, I know one. Now that you mentioned that, one kid that we were rumored to be going after was a offensive tackle out of Stanford, but apparently he's gone ahead and said he's not going to be making a visit this way, so he's off the board. So that's just one less kid. So, like you said, if he comes to town,
get it done.
Both parties are liking what they're hearing and seeing and everything. Close the deal. Send out that note. Don't let him go take another visit, especially to the clown school. They're picking people off left and right in the portal because, apparently that's all they had a big salary cap this year or something. Another prospect that was rumored to be taking a visit this way was Arizona State safety DJ Taylor. Was more of a return man. He also played safety out there. He could play safety and nickel. He had lost his starting spot during the season, but he was an elite return man. But as of today, it sounds like it might be Cincinnati or I forgot the other school that he was looking at, but it's probably not going to be Florida as of today. I don't believe we're in a position where we can take just a return man. I don't think we have that kind of, you say you lost 22, 23 players, and that sounds like you've got tons of spots to fill. But when in reality, because of the COVID year and all of that rolling in, you don't have as many as you think you do. There's only about, as of today, 9 to 10 spots completely available. So you have to be picking and choosing. One of those spots I wanted to talk about is running back. Like we've said, man, we need another running back too. I mean, and receivers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in some questions that were sent in to us in our Pod and the People section. But it should be an interesting couple of weeks. I think you're really about to see us heat up in the portal. Last game of the season's about to get played, and you saw some more kids enter the portal today even. Linebacker at LSU, a couple other guys, receivers.
From Orlando.
Yes. So the talk all along had been, as these teams finished up their bowl games, more and more kids were going to enter the portal. Don't be upset at the staff for not rushing out and taking the first names that drop their names out in the portal. You know, we saw this situation unfold with Jackson. Shout out Edgar for trying to blow the announcement and everything. But through back channels, whether people want to admit it or not, tampering's going on. The staff is making contact with players, and they know if a kid's got interest in entering the portal or not. So just pump the brakes just a little bit on the staff's not doing anything and the staff doesn't have a plan, because I think the plan is a lot more developed than we give it credit for.
And to piggyback off what you're saying about essentially just because you don't hear anything doesn't mean anything's happening. It's like not a lot. Most people didn't hear about or weren't aware that people were going after Tarquin and Barber.
No.
So it's just like,
and it's happening. It's
happening.
It was happening with Tarquin, Barber, and even worse, Trevor and Shamar.
Yeah, absolutely. So and we spoke about some of that last week as well.
Yeah.
But just once again, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? We are. It's probably good news that we're not. But it's not out there. That's because you can't read it in an article. Relax.
Yeah. Just because you can't touch it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Just relax.
Like I said, we'll watch this next week or so. I think we'll see a few more moves come to light, and at least hear some visits announced.
Yep.
Before we move on from talking about the portal, of course, we got to talk about some more news this week. Not portal, excuse me. We need to talk about some team items. Mainly, starting safety Rashad Torrance declared for the NFL draft. Some people not so upset about that. I think it's a loss. I don't think you can spin it. It's another starting safety. So now you're essentially replacing both your starting safeties and your star. What do you think, Mike?
He's a serviceable player. That's one. Everyone's quick to like how the nickel help me out here.
Johnson.
Yeah, when Johnson left. Thank God. But it's not like they're like awful. Just be like, you can be a serviceable player and be good for depth. Okay. So, losing all these players, it's like just because you didn't like them during the season, like it's good for a freshman to have someone to compete against. So, and not just throw them in.
And learn from, whether you think they're good or not.
No, absolutely. And it's also, you got to keep in mind, locker room presence is so important.
Yeah, we're hurting for leaders next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So that's going to help me out going into the next point. Torrance wasn't the best locker room presence from what I'm hearing. So, or is it
spend a little too much time with the other safety,
or just personal? Personal on campus. I'll leave it at that. But the bottom line, so we have a whole new, whole new DB room coming in. So depending on how bad, how bad he was inside of the locker room, you have to weigh that as well. Definitely wasn't the best safety, but he definitely was a plus as compared to a minus.
And this has a snowball effect that people don't think of. There had been talks about moving Kamari to linebacker.
Yeah, you can't have that.
You can't do it now.
That's done. So it's also you can't fully evaluate until you see who you bring in.
Exactly.
So right now I'm okay with it because I know for locker room's sake, he wasn't the best, but like you said, right now it is a loss. You can't. I don't care how you felt about the player, but he wasn't bad. Period. And yes, he does have a chance to go day 3 in the draft. So if you get drafted, you're not awful. Look at Marco.
No. And that takes us to the next guy, Ricky Pearsall tweeted out this week that he had gotten an invite to the combine. There's a lot of discussion still going on about Ricky coming back next year. But he's only got a tight window now. He's, we're in the end game now, as Dr. Strange like to put it. Decisions are going to have to be made and made soon. I know that folks at the collective and whatnot, we're all trying to talk to Ricky and see what it would take to get Ricky to stay. We can't afford. I dread to think if we lose Ricky next year. Any take on that? I mean, aside from the obvious.
I think he's gone. If I'm him,
I do think it was awfully odd to tweet out that you got that invite. That to me is very telling.
The problem is hypothetically he has a better season. How much more can he increase his draft stock? Max 2 rounds?
And that goes. I haven't looked at the receiver board for the draft this year. I can't really tell you.
It's not that good.
Yeah,
it's not that good.
That's exactly that's why I haven't looked, because usually you hear,
he's not going to go first round, so he's going to go between 2 and 4, depending on how he does at the combine.
And you have to look at it. Ricky's not a guy I see working himself into a first round grade next year, even if he comes back.
No chance. So I was going to say next year, where he's going to go between 2 and 4.
He got injured multiple times this year, even though they weren't bad injuries, still injuries.
So hopefully we can figure out a way to incentivize him to come back one more year, because
But that goes back to the Torrance argument. He's a starter. He'll be a leader in that offensive huddle and locker room.
You can't keep losing kids. At a certain point, you gotta.
But is this, as you brought up a second ago, maybe Torrance isn't a good locker room guy. Maybe Ricky is. Is this where you prioritize it and say, look, is this where Billy goes to the people that need to be talked to and said, do what it takes?
You got a bunch of young receivers.
Keep this kid here. Do what it takes. I need this kid next year.
Well, you got a bunch of young receivers. You got a bunch of young receivers. I'm thinking Mizell and Wilson in that,
And Gene.
Pardon?
And Gene.
And
I think Gene plays before Mizell.
No, I said those two more in that mold.
I got you.
They need to get it done.
I definitely think this is one of those situations where the head man has to go to the people that get things done and saying, look, I know I need this guy next year.
Yeah.
This guy is an integral part of what I'm trying to build, and I need him to get from this year to next year so that the offense won't look obviously we know we got the running backs, but receiver is a huge question mark from one side to the other next year.
And we're not going to need a lot of them, but you just don't, once again, you do not want to depend on true freshmen.
No.
Can they get it done?
And Ricky's your best route runner. It ain't even a close, it's not even a close 1-2. He's your best route runner. You can do so many things with him. Like you said, we got to get it done.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, usually this would be Wes's segment. But since Wes isn't here tonight, I'm going to take the reins on this, and it's Pod of the People time. And before we get to y'all's questions y'all sent in, we want to go ahead and say that we're going to try to start this next week, where Pod of the People is going to be a second exclusive video that we try to do for our YouTube subscribers. Y'all send in your questions. We will try to do 10, 15, however long it takes to answer the questions we get. Maybe 20 minutes if it takes that long. We try to answer y'all's questions and post a whole separate video for y'all to watch and hear the answers to your questions. So keep that in mind, guys, as you send in these questions. And as I've said before, guys, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, now is a perfect time. Go ahead and jump on. So when we drop these videos, you might hear something that you wanted to hear, or you asked the question and you want to hear the answer to. So that being said, Pod of the People, jump right in. Our first question tonight, excuse me, comes from Jared White. And Jared's question is, I really don't want to bring in transfers with more than 1 year of eligibility. Really want some of these young guys to get some playing time to develop. Do you guys agree with me? Mike, that's a good question for you.
It's a great, yeah, that's actually a phenomenal question. It depends. It depends on you have to look at the scholarship breakdown. I mean, to answer that question. But like, let's use edge. So you have Powell, or Powell Ryland, I think the full name is. Right, like I'm gonna say, what is he? A junior, to be a junior.
Who's that?
Richard.
Powell?
Yeah, it's gonna be Richard Junior.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Richard sophomore. But the bottom line is, you just need a guy there, a nice veteran backup. You're not a young guy isn't gonna want to sit.
Okay? No, that's not what they're transferring.
Yeah. So a young guy isn't going to want to get a sit. A lot of time, if you can bring a veteran in, they know who they are. They just want to be, once again, especially the defensive line position, they can, get run. Now at certain, once again, quarterback, that's a stopgap. It's if you're not going to get a guy who's going to get 2 years eligibility, the team doesn't want that. Let alone, I don't think any fan would as well, given our current situation. Now, there are certain positions, or our roster calls for, like the defensive, like Cameron Jackson. I absolutely want him for 2-3 years. Okay. Now, same with a corner. But just overall, it's just, or better yet, safety. But overall, it's just going to depend on your depth chart. It's going to depend on your scholarship breakdown. If you have a huge gap, like you have no corner, hypothetically, yeah, you want a corner who has 3 years of eligibility, offensive lineman. If I could get an offensive tackle, the one from Rhode Island, hypothetically, I would have gladly taken him, because we don't have an offensive tackle. So it just comes down to your scholarship breakdown and your depth chart.
And your need.
Yeah.
I think Mitchell was the perfect example of what you were saying about a 1 year guy that's a veteran that knows, he's just trying to get some run,
Yeah.
versus Jackson being an absolute need, a day one plug in and play starter. It just, it always depends on the need and the position, but I do like getting the stopgaps in this particular build that Billy has his young guy, he recruits his young guys. They come in, get a year where they get maybe some situational playing time, but learn the system.
And also at the same time, let's just use FSU. FSU's model, they know they cannot recruit high school. Yeah. Period. They know this. Okay, fine. So their MO, I'm gonna go the transfer portal route. Whatever it's what they want to do. I think it's stupid. So with that being said,
it's not a sustainable model.
No, it's ignorant, but not it's whatever. They got their little 10 wins. All right. So with that being said, I don't think it looks like Billy once again doesn't want to build that way. So you're going to need stopgap guys in order to, so he can get his high school guys ready to go. So you don't force them in. No one, let's just say Norman's ready to go. Let's just say Kelby Collins can slowly work into the system. Cameron James is not going to be ready this year. Seriously, maybe. But a lot of these guys aren't going to be ready this year. No matter how, you can't just press the young button, because a lot of these guys aren't going to be mature enough. Wingo wasn't mature enough his first season.
You'll ruin these kids if you force them. And we talked about that earlier in the season with Kamari and some of the other guys.
Yeah, you want to make them earn it, or at the same time, if you don't make them earn it, you're going to create a sense of entitlement across the program.
Which we just had.
Exactly. So if you can't bench them because you don't have a body, they're going to do whatever they want.
Yep.
Like, what are you going to do? Not play me? Oh, wait, you have to. And yes, that does. I've seen it happen. I've been a part of it. So.
Great question, Jared. Thank you for sending that.
It really was.
Next question comes from Christian Bowles. And Christian, I'm going to cut your question kind of off a little bit with just the first part because I feel like we answered the second part of your question at the end of the show with how Billy handled the portal so far. Christian asks, how do you guys feel about how Napier handled the transfer QB? I know Mertz may not have been the top choice, but it seems like Napier gathered info on Pratt, McCall, Hartman, and acted quickly knowing he wasn't going to get any of those three.
I think he was the top choice.
Do you?
I mean,
or do you think maybe
we brought one guy in?
Well, do you think maybe that you found out Pratt said, I'm not trying? They finally got a firm answer from Pratt. I'm not transferring. Okay. And then, well, I get what you're saying.
He's a top. Who else was available? We went over this.
Well, McCall, and then they found out McCall's his transcripts were written in crayon.
He's not going to be ready till fall.
You're talking about Leary. I think you're talking about Leary.
No, McCall's not going to be ready till fall. Leary's got a pec injury.
McCall can't get into school. That's why he went back to.
I didn't know. I need McCall would graduate and be as well. Sorry, would it be available?
McCall went back to Coastal because he couldn't get into any other school.
Correct. I think he'd be available as a grad transfer in the fall is what I meant.
And Hartman wasn't going to get cleared by UF. And something people need to understand. And I know a lot of people are like, well, how can he get cleared somewhere else and UF won't clear him? People got to keep in mind, and shout out to CJ McCann. He brought this up to me in a conversation we were having a couple weeks ago. UF is huge and has a hospital and has a huge medical presence and whatnot. And it's not going to look good if you bring in a prospect and he has a medical issue on the field. It's just not a good look. The same reason Keontae couldn't get cleared after what happened, but he went to Kansas State and got cleared. UF is not going to take medical chances on some kids that other schools will based on what goes on their campus. It's just, I mean, does it suck sometimes as a fan? Yeah. But then you watch something like what happened, and prayers up that happened Monday night, and UF is not going to take a chance on something like that. It's just the way it is, and we have to accept it because it's going to continue to be that way. I think Billy, we know Mertz came in and visited pretty much right off the rip.
He was the first, once again, he targeted a player. He got him. That's what I meant. Like, maybe.
Yeah, I got what you're saying. I think we had just a little bit of a difference of what we were thinking right there. But yeah, I mean, they obviously knew they had interest in him from day one because he came. And I'll say this. I mean, people keep hating on the Mertz take, but the staff is enamored with how quick he was able to pick up stuff about the offense, the mind he had about things when he came. Give the guy a chance because you ain't got no option right now. I mean, you either get behind him or you just be miserable. That's your choices.
Yeah, the quarterback pool was a lot better. Transfer quarterback was a lot better last season, but it's not so great this cycle.
Well, I think people got a lot more hyped up about who it could be coming out of the gate. When, May was a potential guy out there. Obviously, a lot of people hyped Pratt, and we saw him versus UCF in their championship game, and then you see him.
Pratt broke my heart.
But, I mean, there's other guys out there like the kid from Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders? Nobody's picking him up. A lot of these guys aren't getting picked up. Why is that? Everybody wants the other guy. It's just like the backup quarterback, is always the guy that everyone wants when the quarterback's struggling. But that doesn't mean he's the best guy. Thanks so much, Christian, for that question. Charlie Sapp asked, what about running backs? We need one more. Charlie, you were right on the money with that. And as of right now, I don't know how we get another one without. This is a situation where it might have to be an older guy that just is willing to come in and be part of on the back end of a 3-man rotation. because I mean, I'd rather sit Webb next year if possible. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you're going to get a fourth running back in here right now.
I think you maybe got to go. Yeah. What I'm here, what I saw, I forgot where I saw it. Maybe go FCS and bring them up, like either like a young FCS guy.
I know we were interested in the kid that from North Carolina college. He went to Boston College though, and I don't blame the kid. The kid had 1,300 yards rushing and like 16 touchdowns last year. I wouldn't come here and be the third leg, the third guy.
I think you need to be a young guy personally.
Do you? Okay.
Personally, because you can sell it like, listen, you can work your way into getting some touches, and then next year, work into getting that 2 deep if you can. Now, as opposed to we'll try to get you 5 to 10 touches. I think that's a far easier sell.
Yeah, I could see that. Justin Wood, who always sends us questions. Thank you, Justin, for always sending us these. We appreciate it. Do you think Florida add any more receivers in the transfer portal?
I think
how many? Well, this is 2 parts. So that's his first one. Yes, you got to.
I want to.
And DeBose announced he was going back to school this week. God almighty. So I don't know who you take, but I mean, once again, kids aren't done entering the portal. There might be some guys they take that we're like that we scratch our heads when we take them. Doesn't mean they can't work out. Doesn't mean do you reach back out to a Dejon Reynolds at this point and be like, hey,
he's a Pitt? I thought. No,
that's.
Did he go to Pitt? I don't know.
Did he? I know McMillan did. I might be off on that. You might be. I think you're right.
I know Pitt was looking at him.
But I mean, it's just like receiver is one of those positions where, yes, the guys come off the board pretty quick in the portal there. But do more come on, do more start dropping in there here today, tomorrow, the day after? You definitely got to look, especially if you think there's any chance of losing Ricky. You've got to grab at least 2. Part 2 of Justin's question. How many more portal players do you think we add? Justin, I really don't know the answer to that. I would say probably 7 to 8, minimal. I think you got to find a safety at this point, 2 receivers, a guard, a tackle, possibly an edge, a jack linebacker edge guy. I mean, there's a lot of needs. So we'll see what happens. It's not going to be a quick thing for sure. Jay Stubbins asked, if Rashada has a good spring and it's as good as the vets quarterbacks, or albeit better, do you go into the season and let him or the vets start? Well, we kind of already covered that, Jay, before. I don't think there's any way you can let Rashada start the season, no matter what he looks like in camp. Any argument to that, Mike?
Oh, I mean, if he balls out, he balls out. To be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to ball out.
No,
I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. It's happened before.
Let's just say if it's 51-49, Mertz, let Mertz do it. If it's a 60-40,
I say you let Mertz start till he proves you he can't.
That's my preference. That's what I want, because we're not doing anything this season.
No, and people need to wrap their head on that. I mean, next year needs to be an 8-win or better season to show progress.
Put him in a crock pot.
Like I said, give him situational reps. I mean, you watched it, and by no means is this Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. By no means.
Tim Tebow had a package.
Exactly. And I feel like you might see that for Rashada as well, depending on the game situation. Obviously, third quarter, you're playing Tennessee, it's 28-21. You're not probably rolling him out there.
Yeah.
but you know how that works. Part 2 of Jay Stubbins' questions. Do you think we make a run at the ex-FSU running back Ward? Jay, I'll be real quick with that. Ward left FSU because he wanted more carries. And he ain't getting that here.
Once again, you're the pitcher guy, in my opinion, that Naquan role that he wound up being about 5, actually not even 5 to 10, 4 to 7 carries, touches, because those other guys are gonna get 15.
That's gonna be that is gonna be one of Billy's hardest recruiting sales right there. Hey, I need a running back that comes in and you get 5 carries a game.
Unless he's young.
I get that. And you say, hey, look, Montreal leaves next year. You're number 2.
You got a guy, I would say 3 years of eligibility. You can sell it, especially 3 years of eligibility. If he has red shirted, okay, you're gonna wind up with 2. If he has a red shirt, you can put him in 4. Maybe play him 4 games hypothetically. There's a lot of things you can do.
Why the coaches get paid big money, because you got to figure it out how to sell these kids. Like we talked about Stacey Gage earlier. You got to sell Stacey Gage on, hey, you come in and we pulled in this young guy, and then you're behind him and Webb and obviously Trevor will have at least one more year when that class gets here. It's not an easy sell, but that's what you get paid the money for. So Ryan Parker sends in the question: which current addition to the team, transfer or recruit, do you expect to have the biggest impact on the team? Or do you think there's a potential transfer that could have the most impact?
Read that again.
Which current addition to the team, either transfer or recruit, do you expect to have the biggest impact on the team? Or do you think there is a potential transfer still out there that could have a bigger impact?
I'd say, I think you got to go with Mertz, in my opinion.
I think that's probably low-hanging fruit. I still, call me crazy, I know I don't want to depend on freshmen. I still think Eugene Wilson has a big year next as a freshman. As big as, I'm not saying he's going to have an Evan Stewart kind of year. Don't put me in that. But I do think he's going to play significant snaps and get some yardage next year. I just really think he will, especially with our receiving core being what it is right now. It may be essential for him too. Now, I'm also not discounting Cameron Jackson as being a tremendous impact next year as well. That kid, and he'll probably play more snaps than Watson. Because I think he's going to start. I mean, you already covered that. This kid didn't come here to not start. So, all right. One more question from our man Donut Burger on Twitter. Do you believe anyone earned a 5th star after the UA game? Also, what were your thoughts on Rashada? We already kind of covered that. So, props to that. Rashada had a great week, showed what we probably figured he would, looked great in the practice settings. Didn't quite get a great package called for him during the game. So I wasn't real pleased with that. That game was pretty boring from an all-star standpoint. But do we believe anyone earned a 5th star after the UA game? I could see possibly Kelby Collins sneaking in there. I don't think Jackson will get that high with Ricks, especially. I know Malik Muhammad, that's committed to Texas, also had a big week out there, and you've got Ricks, and Cormani's still probably going to stay ahead of him no matter what happens. So I would think if anybody got a 5th star out of this last week, it would be Kelby.
I agree with you to the fact that if I had to pick one, it would be Kelby. Problem is Kelby's at 60 on the composite. I don't see him jumping essentially 30 spots. I could see him going top 50.
It's weird,
and then
this goes back to an age-old conversation. Like, you see these kids take these meteoric jumps sometimes because of how they perform just in this setting. And it's one that I distinctly remembered was Cam Newton. Cam Newton, when Urban first started recruiting him, was a 4-star out of College Park and wasn't highly recruited at that point in time. And then he did, he played a season, and then he went to the practices, and this kid shot all the way up to like 24th, I want to say, was his final ranking or something like that. It was crazy. But now you have more services, and it kind of dilutes the rankings because everybody wants to be different. You look at Rashada on Rivals, and he's like 158th or some nonsense, and they've got quarterback committed to Cincinnati above him, and there's just too many ranking services now for these kids, some of these kids, to make it if they weren't initially in that top 25 prospects to jump that high. But thanks for sending in the questions, guys. We appreciate it. Like I said, next week we're going to post that up a little earlier so we can get more questions, and then we're going to try to do that as its own individual little show to release on YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, go on out there and grab it now. And we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Mike, you got anything before we get out of here?
Sayonara, Scott.
And sadly enough, as of 8:36 on January 4th, Bateman still has us. Sheesh. Guys, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We continue to love all the support we get, and we thank you so much. Make sure you go out there, download us wherever you get your podcast from. As I just mentioned, check out the YouTube channel, man. Go ahead and drop a subscribe on us and hit the notification bell so you get a notification whenever we drop new videos. And if you'd like to support us as creators, check out our Patreon, respectourdecision.com. As I've always said, each and every dollar we get goes back into this show, and we appreciate you so much. So, guys, thank you again. And until next week, go Gators.
Go Gators.